You wake up. You scroll for 20 minutes before you even sit up. You tell yourself today will be different. It never quite is. But your ancestors never had this problem. They never needed a morning routine. They never needed a podcast to get them out of bed. So what did they have that you don't? 10,000 years ago, nobody woke up dreading the day. Not because life was easier. It was brutally harder. But their brains were wired for something you've lost. Something modern life quietly took away without you noticing. Think about the last time you truly wanted to do something. Not needed to. Wanted to. For most people, that feeling is rare now. It comes and goes like weather. But for early humans, that feeling was almost constant. Hunger arrived, and so did the drive to solve it. Cold arrived, and so did the urge to build a fire. There was no gap between needing something and acting on it. That gap is the whole problem today. Psychologists call it the intention-behavior gap. You intend to do something. Your body simply doesn't follow. Researcher Peter Gollwitzer spent decades studying why this happens, and his work points to one simple truth. Intentions alone rarely create action. Something else has to bridge the space between wanting and doing. Ancient humans didn't have that gap because their actions were tied directly to survival feedback. Chase the animal, eat tonight. Gather the roots, live another day. There was no ambiguity. No 15 steps between thought and result. Now picture your to-do list. Send an email. Update a spreadsheet. Apply for a job that might reply in 6 weeks. None of it gives your brain the immediate proof it's wired to expect. Your nervous system evolved for instant consequences, not distant rewards. So it stalls. It waits. It scrolls. Here's where dopamine comes in, and it's not what most people think it is. Dopamine isn't a reward chemical. It's a prediction chemical. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered this decades ago while studying primate brains. Dopamine spikes not when you get something good, but when you correctly predict that something good is coming. Ancient humans lived inside a world built entirely on accurate predictions. Track the animal, predict the kill, feel the surge. Modern life scrambles that system. You apply for the job and wait. You post something online and wait. The prediction and the outcome are ripped apart by days, sometimes months. Your dopamine system, the very thing responsible for drive, has almost nothing to latch onto. So it's not that you're lazy. It's that your biology is starving for a feedback loop it no longer receives. Anthropologist and evolutionary biologist Herman Pontzer studied the Hadza, a hunter-gatherer group in Tanzania, and one of his most striking findings had nothing to do with diet. It was about effort. The Hadza don't experience the same dread around physical labor that people in industrialized nations often report. Their daily movement isn't separated into work and exercise. It's simply life. There's no gym membership guilt. No forcing yourself onto a treadmill at 6 in the morning. Effort and purpose are fused together because every action has a visible, immediate, physical result. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. When was the last time your effort gave you something you could see or feel within the hour? That's the piece missing from modern motivation. Not willpower. Not discipline. Immediate, visible cause and effect. There's another layer to this, and it's about identity. In small hunter-gatherer groups, your contribution mattered instantly and visibly to everyone around you. If you gathered food, the group ate. If you helped build shelter, everyone slept warmer that night. Your effort had social weight the moment it happened. Today, your effort disappears into systems too large to notice you. You finish a report and it vanishes into a shared drive. You help a customer and never learn if it changed anything. Recognition, when it exists at all, arrives late and diluted. Humans are not built for delayed, diffuse recognition. We're built for tight, immediate social feedback. Take that away, and motivation doesn't just weaken. It becomes confusing to your own brain. So how did ancient humans avoid burnout, procrastination, and the endless inner argument with themselves? They weren't stronger-willed. They simply lived inside a system that made motivation automatic. Hunger created movement. Movement created result. Result created safety. Safety created rest. And then hunger returned, and the loop repeated. No apps. No planners. No motivational quotes taped to a mirror. You, on the other hand, live inside a world engineered to separate effort from reward as much as possible. Advertising, careers, social platforms, they all stretch the gap between action and consequence, because that gap is where attention gets captured and monetized. Your ancestors' world rewarded immediate honesty between effort and outcome. Yours often rewards patience, waiting, and trust in systems you can't see. This doesn't mean you're broken. It means your motivation problem was never really about you. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying what he called flow states, moments when people become completely absorbed in an activity because the feedback is instant and the challenge matches their skill exactly. Ancient life, by necessity, created flow constantly. Hunting demanded total presence. Foraging demanded acute attention to the smallest details. There was no room for distraction because distraction could mean going hungry. Ironically, that pressure created some of the most naturally motivated humans who ever lived. Not because they had grit, because their environment gave them no other option. So what can you actually take from this? You can't hunt for your dinner tonight. You can't return to a world with instant, life or death feedback. But you can rebuild small versions of that loop. Shrink the gap between effort and result wherever you can. Make your work visible. Make your progress felt, not just tracked. Find people who notice what you do the same day you do it, not weeks later in a performance review. Your ancestors didn't need motivation because their world gave it to them for free, moment by moment, action by action. Yours doesn't. So the goal was never to become more disciplined. It was to rebuild, piece by piece, the kind of feedback your brain has been waiting for since long before you were born. There's one more piece worth understanding, and it explains why willpower feels like such a losing battle. Willpower was never designed to run your whole day. Psychologist Roy Baumeister spent years researching what he called ego depletion, the idea that self-control draws from a limited mental resource that drains with use. Whether or not every detail of that theory holds up under later scrutiny, the underlying pattern is hard to ignore. Force yourself through enough friction, and by evening, even simple decisions feel exhausting. Ancient humans rarely had to force themselves through anything. Their days weren't built on suppressing impulses. They were built on following them, because the impulse and the correct action were almost always the same thing. Hungry, so you moved toward food. Threatened, so you moved toward safety. There was no internal argument to referee. You, by contrast, spend enormous energy every day overriding your own instincts, ignoring the notification, resisting the snack, pushing through the urge to quit early. None of that is a character flaw. It's the cost of living somewhere your instincts and your actual goals rarely point in the same direction anymore. So imagine, just for a moment, redesigning your day the way an ancient forager's day was designed. Not by adding more tasks, by removing the distance between wanting and doing. Put the guitar where you'll see it, not in a closet. Leave the running shoes by the door, not buried in a drawer. Tell one person what you're working on today, so the feedback arrives in hours, not weeks. Each of these is a tiny act of shrinking that ancient gap back down to something your brain still recognizes. It won't feel like discipline. It will feel closer to hunger, closer to the quiet, automatic pull your ancestors felt every single morning without ever having to think about it. Tonight, when you finally put the phone down and just start the thing you've been avoiding, notice what happens the second you make real progress. That small spark isn't weakness returning. It's 10,000 years of biology quietly reminding you what motivation actually feels like.